is that there is a disalignment, there is a delay between the original series and the moving average. Instead, if we perform, in this case, a linear regression model fuzzy transform, as you can see, we get still a smoothed version of the signal, but this is very, very nice and interesting, is very tight to the original series. And this is a, I think, very interesting point. There is a trick, and one of you that will tell me why I'm fooling you will win a prize, okay? Because there is a trick. But for the moment, let's skip this smooth trick, okay? And okay, so this is quite good. But on a quantitative basis, we made some we made some measurement. For example, here we have different models, regression models used with fuzzy transform with only 9 points. 9 is the number of points. So here we have almost 500 points, and we are using here only 9 nodes. So this means for linear regression, we are considering 18 parameters. With 18 parameters to represent the whole time series in a smoothed way. And we consider the standard deviation between the standard deviation was used in order to measure the smoothness of regularity of the time series. And as you can see, moving average is smoother, but not far is smooth as well. If we just modify slightly the parameters, we can obtain more or less the same standard deviation. But this is important. As we can see, this is a difference, the mean absolute error between the approximation and the original data. And as we can see, for moving average, this is much higher. This is the reason of delay. This is because of delay. Because since this is not fitting well, the error that we get from original data and the smoothed version of the data is becoming quite high. For sure, higher than this one that is much fitting the original series. So the result, the message is, we get something that is smoothed as much as a moving average, but more tied to the original data. Okay, now let's move just to the last part of this presentation, and I will just make you what we discussed up to now. I will put you in the context of deep learning to see trying to convince you why F-transform can be a tool that can be exploited for deep learning. As I'm telling you, it's mainly based on current work. So we don't have any quantified result at the moment. It's something we are working on, and so that's why it's basically a research agenda. So you will not get any concrete final result. But I think it's good for establishing a discussion about this topic. Okay, so deep learning. For deep learning, what is deep learning? Deep learning is a new generation of neural networks where correlation between data is not anymore performed at one level, but is performed by aggregating different levels of abstraction. So I start from simple feature, I start to make correlation between simple feature, and then from the synthetic feature that I get, I start to make an higher level of abstraction in order to obtain a stronger correlation. So at the end, I take correlation between objects, complex objects. For our discussion, we will just consider two architectures that are very relevant for fuzzy transform. In particular, the autoencoders and convolutional neural networks. Okay, an autoencoder. An autoencoder is a structure that is performing first what we call a coding. so a compression of information, and then after a decoding, so a decompression of the original information. They have been introduced by Jeff Hinton. Jeff Hinton is absolutely the main author at the moment. He's the major author at the moment in artificial intelligence field, machine learning field. All main innovation in this field have been due to his work and his lab activity. And what we can see from this structure is that so we perform first a space reduction step by step, and then we move to expand again the space. Why we need that? We need that because by this way we are performing non-linear modeling of data in order to denoise the data that we have. For example, it's one of the main applications is the denoising of the data. And how we can learn this? We can learn this basically moving by layer. So first we learn we learn from data the green layer. Then we use the green layer as input, and we learn the yellow layer, and so on until we reach the final the core of the activation. Okay, but this is very similar to fuzzy transfer because we have inputs and inputs are associated to coefficients. If we look here at the fuzzy transform coefficients, and here instead we have the input space, basically this is the same structure we can use for the fuzzy transform. So there is a strict relation between the two objects. Okay, and let's keep this in mind. Convolutional neural networks. For convolutional neural networks, we have a more complex architecture because we have receptive fields that are individual cortical neurons that are responding to a smaller region of the input space. Then we have a partially overlap of these receptive fields. And then, as mentioned on this morning, we can use convolution as the operator for performing the neural network processing. But if we look to these to receptive fields that are partially overlapping, the first thing that is coming to our mind is a fuzzy partition. A fuzzy partition is made by locally overlapping subdomains, range of the domain, and then from that we can we obtain the output for the next layer. What is important is that they are shift invariant or space invariant. So this means that differently from what we have in other neural networks, the ways when we move from one region to another region, this is the reason for convolution, is not changing. It's the same application that we apply to each okay, here you can see the two prominent examples. This is LENET 5 that is, as you can see, dated back to 1988. So very many years ago, due to the work of LeCun and Benjo mainly. And this is a more recent one that is made by Jeff Hinton and his student Alex Krisweski, that is performing, let's say, it's the same architecture, but it is using rectified linear units. This is keeping to our mind the triangular shape for fuzzy sets, and it's using max pooling instead of average pooling. This is coming to our mind the representativeness of points for fuzzy transform. So as you can see, we have all the ingredients that we can use to make fuzzy transform work in a deep learning architecture. Indeed, what is the role of fuzzy transform? For any neural network, we need to learn a function from data. And this should be done with any approximation, with any precision that we would like. But the fuzzy transform is provides a universal approximation. So it's able to respond to this first constraint. The second one, we should reduce the input dimensionality. And we saw that compression for fuzzy transform is able to do that. We should remove noise from data. And with smoothing, we are able to do that with the fuzzy transform. So on the right side, you see the feature, the characteristic of fuzzy transform that we just highlighted before in the previous part of the presentation. And reconstructing this information, we have interpolation. For convolutional neural networks, we need other two main properties. The first is space invariance. But since we use a uniform partition, since the basic function is the same, we are, instead of, think about this, instead of considering the partition, you take just one set and you move the set. You are performing exactly the partition, but dynamically. And this is equivalent to a space invariance for a convolutional neural network. And for pooling, why to choose the mean as Lecun 5 was doing at the beginning? Why not to use the max as AlexNet introduced later, a few years later, performing much better? So why we should choose the weighted mean as a representative of the fuzzy transform? As we saw, using, for example, a regression model, we are able to have an even better representation of data. Okay, just to give you, I'm closing the presentation, just a few moments of your attention. It's what is a learning problem? A learning problem is to find the optimal parameters that are minimizing a measure of error between what is the pattern that we give as input to the approximation that we get from the model. So, if we choose properly, for example, generally we use the square error mean as a measure of error, we can learn data in order to find optimal nodes, x1, xn, as we saw when we spoke about adaptive fuzzy transform. We can find the optimal most representative value of phi, or we can find both. And since we are using, for example, an appropriate measure of error, for example, the square error, we can use a gradient descendant algorithm that is at the basis, for example, for back propagation algorithm that is used in neural networks in order to find optimal values for these parameters. So we can learn from data the model, and this is the meaning of machine learning, even for complex models such as deep learning algorithms. Okay, so we reach the conclusions. For the conclusion, we can say that fuzzy transform is very simple, but a novel approach that is not yet fully investigated. And in my opinion, there is a lot of space to understand what is the role that it can play for complex modeling of data. In particular, there are properties, and I hope that I gave you just some insights about our attempt that it's possible. We have some insights that maybe it's possible to make it as a basic tool to use for deep learning architecture. And as I told you before, we are still at the beginning of this investigation, so there are many problems to solve and in order to accommodate this model, this kind of application. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention. I hope that I chose the right. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for such a wonderful presentation. You mentioned about fuzzy logic, fuzzy-driven regression, machine learning. Basically, if it has two types, one is supervised learning and unsupervised learning. And the points that you mentioned of linear regression versus fuzzy logic driven regression was very interesting, especially for me. And I'm sure all the researchers, young researchers over here, could definitely take one or the other things. We'll open for question and answers now. If you have any questions.
Whatever you are talking fuzzy, what is the fuzziness in this? See, this is an expanding a function with a subdomain basis function.
Yeah.
That's what essentially you are doing, right? So why you want to call it a fuzzy transform? That's what I think method of moments we always do. We expand a function in terms of subdomain basis function.
Yes, exactly. Well, we have. Let's give. There are several answers to the first, your interesting question. The first answer is that we are in a professional community, as you know, and Filieva is one of the main researchers in fuzzy logic. So it was strange to call it a probabilistic transform, for example. So this is, let's say, something that maybe can destroy the imagination of people. But actually, because of the starting point, now let's come back to more serious answer. The starting point is that, first of all, we are using Ruspini fuzzy partition. And the second point is that, as you saw before we come back to this interpretation, logical interpretation, if we come back to, yes, this one, this has been fully investigated in fuzzy logic since long time now. We are speaking about 1975, this model is introduced. Yes, sure. At the end, let's say that mathematical entities are a universal language. We should sometimes remember about the reason, but I don't know. Yes, we could change the name, but we should respect also the inventor of this method, and she decided to call it.
No, for example, in numerical techniques, when we apply the Ritz method, it's precisely that's what we do in Ritz, in computational technique. We don't call it there any transform, but when we have a relative approximation, you take a function, expand the function into local basis functions, which could be subdomain basis functions, and minimize the function to find out what the coefficients are.
Yeah.
There's a standard technique which we do, whenever we try to do computational approximation to the function. So these functions are not orthogonal functions, right?
Sorry?
These functions are not orthogonal. Orthogonal.
Tolerant.
They are not perpendicular to each other, right? These functions.
These functions.
Yeah. Are they orthogonal?
No, they are not.
They are not orthogonal, right?
No.
So how do we know that you are going to get a perfect construction if the functions are not orthogonal? The error will go to 0.
Excuse me, I did not understand.
No, for example, if you take a function, if you expand that into, let us say, Fourier series.
Okay.
The Fourier functions are orthogonal functions.
If they are orthogonal.
Right.
Yeah.
These functions are not orthogonal. Right? So then how do we guarantee that the errors will monotonically go to 0 as the number of functions increase?
Because I can give you the proof of. Is it a necessary condition? No, the orthogonality is sufficient. Is it necessary as well?
Not essential condition. It's not an essential condition. But it's nice condition, to see.
Yeah, no, I mean orthogonality is only sufficient or is also necessary. I don't remember now.
It's not necessary.
It's not necessary. It's not necessary. So no, because after that I was scared about that maybe the proof was wrong. Okay, but I can show you that by the proof of this proposition. Okay, but the proof of this proposition, you can easily, I can show you, you can easily see that by compressing the sets at each point, you get exactly that this error goes to 0. I can show you the proof. Okay. Yeah, coming back to the discussion about language and terminology. Every community has its own, and maybe in fuzzy logic they are very prolific. Somebody is saying also that is related to, yes, to other orthogonal, for example, to wavelength transform. It's very similar. Okay. But let me tell you that maybe in a wavelength transform you have a kernel that is you are using convolution again. Here instead you are not doing that. You are fixing the partition, so you are making a texture of your input space, and you try to compress the information from this texture. So maybe in that case it's a bit different from the other approach. I'm happy that anyway you got very point-wise observations. Thank you.
Any more questions? Researchers, students, faculty
Yeah, maybe
members?
from some young student. The trick. Where is the trick? Why? I just take a few minutes. Why you think that I fooled about? Excuse me. Some heavy graphics. Okay. Where is the trick? And why I not become the richest man in the world? Because you can understand that if I was able to use this on financial markets, now maybe I was spending my time on some nice restaurants. Why? I give you a suggestion. Think about the fuzzy partition. A fuzzy partition, you take a node, but you look backward and you look forward. And that's the trick. Moving average is only looking at the back, and that's why we can use it practically for taking real-time decisions. Instead, here we need to look forward. We are looking at the future, and we say, well, maybe things can be in that direction, okay? But actually, nobody can look at the future. That's why, I'm sorry, I did not make any financial success yet. But anyway, for post-processing, I think that this, for example, for machine learning, because in machine learning we don't need such a property. We don't have streaming in many applications. Let's say not in all applications, but in many applications we don't have streaming data, so we cannot. We can use it as a smoother, as a filter. So I was honest. Okay. Thank you very much again for your time and your attention.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to invite our second keynote speaker, Professor Subrata Datta Roy. He is the Associate Professor in the Department of Electrical Engineering, Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. His areas of research interests are